We've been traveling around the world for over a year now. The cold winter months in Siberia and Alaska are long gone, as are the days of searching for Mayan pyramids to explore. On this last leg of our trip, we had to navigate the waters of the Caribbean, since there are no roads connecting Panama and Colombia. But from now on, we're going to turn away from the beaches. This time, I'll take my camera out to record the steep landscapes of Venezuela's Grand Sabana. We'll fly over legendary waterfalls and go rafting on the rivers of Canaima National Park. Then we'll reach the city of Manaus, right in the heart of the Amazon. We'll approach the Great River and then cut across the biggest jungle on the planet over the legendary BR-319. A 460-mile stretch of abandoned road that will lead us to the Surui indigenous community. The Surui will tell us about the open warfare between people who are working to save the Amazon and those who are destroying it. Episode 7. The Amazon Labyrinth.
Después de nuestra travesía por el Caribe durante 5 días a bordo de un velero, por fin hemos llegado a Colombia. La vuelta al mundo alcanza así Sudamérica y vamos a iniciar nuestro recorrido en Cartagena de Indias, una ciudad que conserva el encanto de la colonia española y todo el sabor del trópico.
Cartagena is one of those cities that have it all. The castle of San Felipe is its most solemn symbol. It represents the power of the colonial period. Cartagena's historic district invites visitors to stroll the streets, unhurried and unguided. We learned long ago that in cities as charming as Cartagena, it really makes no difference where you choose to go. And as you wander around the city, you're sure to find a statue by Botero, a forest dweller far from home, or a dance troupe in the middle of the street.
¿Tú bailas como ellos? Más o menos.
Cartagena permeates the senses with the infectious beat of its drums, the cheerful color of its squares, and the flavor of its tropical fruits.
Eva la Balenquera.
Y la compañera Edith.
Edith y Eva, pues yo me voy a comer esto a vuestra salud. ¿Eh? ¿Qué son? ¿5.000 pesitos?
Sí, 5.000 pesitos.
Venga, toma 5.000 pesitos. Y me voy a dar el capricho de comerme una de las ensaladas de fruta más jugosas que se pueden comer en todo Colombia.
Sharing fruit salad is one thing, but carrying it the way these women do is a whole other matter.
A ver, no te preocupes, yo estoy sujetando. Eva María, confía. Ten fe, Eva María. Habéis metido mucha piña aquí, ¿eh? No, hay que intentarlo, Eva María, hay que tener concentración, ¿eh? ¡Uy!
Así, eso.
De verdad, eres mi ídolo. Yo no sé cómo puedes sujetar esto.
Y mírame.
No.
As if that weren't enough, we can also sunbathe by the Caribbean here. However, there is one good reason to abandon the beaches of Cartagena. An even better beach. Many tourists sail up and down Colombia's coast, hopping from beach to beach. We prefer to travel over land, although the whole concept of land is sometimes relative. It took us ages to get there, but the minute we stepped on the sands of Playa Blanca, we forgot the hours behind the wheel. There are no buildings here, just palm trees, and only a handful of foreigners. The water is a deeper shade of green. The locals are more genuine. And any place will do to set up an impromptu watering hole.
Cogemos este coco, lo cortamos, le sacamos la mitad del agua, le agregamos hielo.
Un poquito de hielo para enfriar.
Sí, una copa de ron, Medellín añejo, ron de aquí, ron colombiano.
Claro, tiene que ser de aquí.
De aquí. Y tercero, le agregamos una copa de piña colada. Cuarto, unos 2 pitillos.
Se remueve.
Y se prueba y usted me da el buen punto y me dice qué tal. ¿Qué tal ese comienzo?
Y Hipólito, yo creo que está en su punto, ¿eh?
Sí.
Pero totalmente en su punto.
Eso comienza a desarrollar unos puntos que en la mente no estaban y comienza uno a traer cosas que...
¿Me
¿sabes?
quieres decir que es afrodisíaco?
Eso.
Playa Blanca is a secluded, fairly inaccessible spot, but that only makes it more enjoyable. The only problem is we have to get back on a mud road in order to reach another place where mud is precisely the main point of interest. Although it may not look like it, this little mound is one of Colombia's best-known volcanoes. It's called El Totumo, or the mud volcano, because inside the crater is full of a sludge made up of ashes and mud. They say this mud has healing properties and also works as a skin moisturizer. These advantages are clearly enough to warrant a dip. It's impossible to sink in this mud. It's like floating in a huge cup of hot chocolate. But it's not easy to make friends here.
Hola. ¿Qué tal? ¿Me das un abrazo?
Still, they've thought of everything here. At the foot of the volcano, there's a freshwater reservoir, where a few women work helping people remove this sort of Rambo costume.
Ya la oigo.
I'm not sure if it makes your skin firmer, but taking a mud bath inside a volcano has its charm. For the next few miles, we'll continue on the highways that run along the coast. We'll catch a glimpse of the last beaches in Colombia before crossing over another border. In Venezuela, we'll have to cross Lake Maracaibo, leave the oil wells behind, and go for a radical change of scenery. While we're at it, we'll get a new look. The wind created the coral sand dunes at its whim. A desert in the heart of the tropics. I'm used to recording sandy beaches with my camera, but these dunes have never been touched by the ocean's waves. Only certain cactuses endure this desert devoid of palm trees. About 120 miles from the sand dunes, we decide to take our last boat trip in the Caribbean. At a town called Chichiriviche, we set off to sail the keys of Morocoy from one island to the next. Beachgoers can only access these beaches by boat, but even so, there's a constant flow of sea traffic here. In fact, on some of the islands, it's hard to find a spot on the sand, or even inside the water. As we cruise among the keys, we get the feeling that the best part of our trip around the world is about to come to an end. We have just enough time to take some photos and disembark one last time on a beach all to ourselves. I must say, it really is hard to say goodbye to the Caribbean.
Esto es vida. Este es sin duda un momento dramático para los miembros de la expedición. Desde la península de Yucatán en México hasta los cayos de Morrocoy aquí en Venezuela, hemos disfrutado de las playas de arena blanca, de las aguas cristalinas, del encanto, en definitiva, del mar Caribe. Y creo que es el momento de despedirnos. Seguro, ¿no, chicos? Nos tenemos que ir.
The good news is that from this point on, our journey will be a bit more action-packed. We'll continue to head east until we get to the capital. From Caracas, we'll turn south and then drive well over 600 miles before finally entering Venezuela's Gran Sabana. Canaima National Park is about to become one of the most fascinating destinations on our entire journey. We are entering a part of the world that locals often compare to a woman. The landscape is beautiful, full of soft curves, and as much as one may think one knows the Gran Sabana, it never ceases to amaze. The Uruani River has become a magnet for whitewater rafting enthusiasts. There's a new thrill waiting around every corner of the park. Ivan Artal grew up around Canaima's rivers. In this sort of place, it's best not to stray too far from the experts. Especially if you intend to go whitewater rafting for the first time in your life in Canaima's wildest rapids. Adventure has become part of the daily grind here. The Gran Sabana is full of nooks and crannies, little bits of paradise hidden inside the forest. In just one day, we are tempted by several opportunities to dive into clear pools of water. or bathe in waterfalls such as this one, known as the Bride's Veil. Not too far from there, we reach a lagoon that some sort of aquatic plant has tinted red. Next to it is another waterfall. Soon afterward, we're walking in a brook called Quebrada de Jaspe. A river flows right through this slippery stretch of land. As we walk along the rocky riverbed, we get the feeling we're in some sort of dreamland, where around every bend in the road, there's a river falling, flying, or diving into a void. And on top of it all, we still haven't seen a thing. We're going to have to take the car in order to explore one of the largest natural parks in the world. The rains turn these dirt roads into mud, and from the looks of it, some people haven't been quite as lucky as we have. But after hours spent behind the wheel on mud roads, we are rewarded with another glimpse of water. The Aponwal Falls are one of Canaima's most spectacular attractions, and at this point we are not easily impressed. The waterfall is almost 1/3 as big as Victoria Falls, nearly 350 feet high, which is really just a slight drop, nothing compared to some of the other waterfalls we are about to approach.
Si algo caracteriza el paisaje de la Gran Sabana es el perfil de sus famosos tepuis. Son formaciones rocosas únicas en el mundo y nosotros vamos a tener la oportunidad de sobrevolarlas para acercarnos a sus paredes verticales de hasta 2000 metros de altura.
The helicopter helps us get a new perspective and enjoy the landscape from a different point of view. We've already seen all sorts of cascades, but we hadn't flown over any of them yet. From the air, Canaima is magnificent. I've been recording the park's wonders for hours now, but it's these flat-top mountains called tepuis that really give this place its personality. They're like gigantic walls bursting out of the Gran Sabana. It's as if the landscape was continually posing a challenge. Along the rock walls, rivers with no set course randomly crash into the void. These steep rock walls jutting out of the plateau are the oldest mountains on Earth. Take a peek at the Tepuis summits, we discover a strange landscape, full of rock formations that could well belong on another planet. And our pilot is about to surprise us with a sort of moon landing on top of one of the tepuis. We have just 15 minutes to explore this unique landscape.
Estamos a más de 2500 metros sobre el nivel del mar, rodeados de un curioso jardín de piedras donde solo crecen plantas endémicas de este lugar. Pero lo más impactante es que estas piedras se formaron hace más de 2000 millones de años.
Conditions such as the climate, height, and I imagine the passing centuries have given shape to an ecosystem unlike any other. And here we are, taking our cameras out of their cases in order to photograph a place that is not quite a jungle, or a mountain, or a tropical highland, but rather all of them at once. It's almost as if, on top of the tepuis, the only thing that's really out of place is a human being. But we have yet to see the park's biggest attraction. It's a little way off, hidden between the tepuis and the farthest reaches of Canaima's jungle. And suddenly, before our very eyes, we see the tallest waterfall in the world. A 3,200-foot drop. The world's most impressive waterfall. Angel Falls. This place has offered us an overdose of landscapes. But it's time for us to exchange waterfalls for a trek through the jungle. This is where Canaima ends and the Amazon begins. First, we cross the Brazilian border, entering the southern hemisphere for the first time on our trip. Many hours later, we finally reach Manaus. This city is the result of a totally far-fetched plan. In the late 19th century, rubber fever brought prosperity to the heart of the Amazon. There were no roads within 600 miles of this place. Malaria laid waste to the workers, and they had to clear land, encroaching upon a jungle no man before them had ever dared enter. The Portuguese managed to establish Manaus's reputation as the Paris of the tropics. Where once there had been palm trees and jaguars, now there were statues and cathedrals. The city was soon filled with Bohemian glass, Carrara marble, and the French tiles used to decorate the dome of the Opera House. The world's most sought-after performers came here in order to sing in this legendary theatre in the middle of the jungle. Today, Manaus is still one of the most important cities in the country, although the magic of the early days has been lost. The city is now accessible by land, but even so, the Rio Negro remains its point of entry. I take my camera out at the port and wonder about all the boats and people coming and going, shipping things. All of this has been part of Manaus from the start. And just like any other Brazilian city, life here never stops. Neither by day, nor by night.
Yo particularmente me quedo con la noche de Manaus. En Brasil se vive casi siempre un carnaval perpetuo. Y estando en la capital del Amazonas, podemos asistir a danzas que representan la cultura indígena de esta región. No te vayas a quemar, amigo, ¿eh?
After driving over 600 miles through the jungle from Venezuela to the city of Manaus, we are not going to stay at the hotel tonight. Although, truth be told, there are some hotels where you could easily live full-time. Tiwa is more than just a hotel. It's a sort of gateway to the Amazon jungle. While we're here, we may as well take it easy. We've been traveling for over a year and we've stayed in all sorts of places, but I have to admit there's something special about riverside hotels. This is a good place to rest after hours behind the wheel. Each of us hangs out at his leisure.
Delicioso.
The only problem is finding a spot for a nap. At Tiwa, hammocks have become highly coveted pieces of furniture.
Bueno.
We better go out for a while. Sometimes we forget that the Rio Negro is just a river. As we approach Manaus, we really get the feeling we're about to enter a seaport. And yet, the Amazon River is much bigger than the Rio Negro. Near the port, there's a point where the waters of these two gigantic rivers converge, although they never actually mix.
Estamos hablando de dos colosos, el río Negro, que tiene más agua que todos los ríos de Europa juntos, pero que solo es un afluente del Amazonas. ¿Qué caudal puede tener el Amazonas en la desembocadura?
Por ejemplo, solo para tener una idea, en la desembocadura es disponible 200.000 litros de agua cúbico por segundo.
¿Por segundo?
Por segundo.
Eso es mucha agua.
Es mucha agua. Es como 3 en 3 minutos toda la población mundial tener una botella de agua de 2 litros.
Facts and figures about its water volume don't describe another of the Amazon's realities. As we travel along the great river, we discover a trail of life left behind in its wake. These are houseboats. Some nomadic tribes here follow the river's course. Fishing is the main means of livelihood in the land between the wildest jungle in the world and the Amazon River. But as we have already seen in many other remote villages, tourism has managed to penetrate the jungle, and in this case, animals are the main attraction.
No resulta fácil escoger un animal de compañía si uno vive en las orillas del Amazonas. Sus habitantes están acostumbrados a convivir con la naturaleza salvaje y cada una de las mascotas tiene su propia particularidad. ¡Ay! ¿Qué longitud puede tener?
3 metros a 4 metros aproximadamente y llega hasta 6 metros.
Bueno, vamos a alimentarlo un poco.
Vamos.
Yo no creo que necesite crecer más, pero por si acaso sí, no le vamos a dejar con hambre.
On the riverbank, it's not just animals that grow without restraint. Victoria amazonica is a sort of giant water lily that only exists in this part of the world. Its leaves can grow as large as 10 feet in diameter. That's not bad for a flower. José Luis is about to discover that some of the plants here are even more amazing. We are going to disappear into the jungle for a while, although without a guide, we'd probably disappear for good.
Sonia, ¿este qué árbol es?
Esta árvore é uma árvore que se chama de lacre.
De lacre.
Lacre.
¿Pero este es el lacre que se usa para sellar las cartas?
Não, este se usa para que se corta, como é que se para cicatrizante, como se fosse o metilacre.
O sea que ahora con el machete me cortas y no pasa nada.
Não passa nada.
When I take my camera out in the jungle, all I see are plants and trees. But if you know where to look, there's always more.
Pode ser na faca.
Es una antorcha, es medicina para el asma, para el dolor de cabeza, un poco para todo, en 5 minutos. Hay una farmacia auténtica aquí en la selva.
What our photographer has yet to learn is that the jungle isn't just a pharmacy. It can also turn into an all-you-can-eat buffet.
Uma surpresa para ti.
Uf, una sorpresa. ¿Pero esto qué es? Esto es
É uma labra.
una larva,
Una larva.
un gusano, pero está vivo. Esto
Está vivo,
Pero, ¿y esto esto me lo tengo que comer?
isto tem que comer. Se não queira morrer de fome,
No, prefiero comer a morir.
não come.
Bueno, vamos.
Como sente?
Es suave,
Muito suave.
¿eh? ¿Y tiene muchas proteínas?
De até 1 litro de leite.
Ponme otra.
Mais outra.
Firefly larvae are just one of the many exotic foods on the menu here.
Nos hemos detenido en este rincón de uno de los afluentes de Río Negro y en esta ocasión me acompaña Alberto, que me ha prestado su equipo de pesca, las cañas de bambú y la carnada literal. ¿Y para qué? Para pescar la piraña, precisamente este pez. Me dicen que es muy fiero, pero tú me aseguras que no es muy peligroso.
Não, não é perigoso.
¿Cómo? Enséñame la técnica antes de que meta la pata o el dedo.
Não. Aqui. Segura firme.
Hay que agarrar en el medio.
Isso, no meio, firme.
Ajá.
Piranhas are endemic to the Amazon River Basin, a territory that on its own comprises a world apart.
Uf, mi primera piraña. Ay.
The piranha's flesh is considered a delicacy here. The problem is that around here, piranhas also consider human flesh a delicacy.
Voy a devolverla al río porque a mí me dan un poco de pena.
Sim, sim.
Mejor las dejamos otra
Melhor
vez.
soltar.
Ahí la tienes.
But now, the idea is to go looking for the people who have always lived in this jungle. This is where the luxury hotels and boat cruises end. Adventure awaits on a road that stretches over 430 miles before reaching Portobello. It's the legendary BR319. First, we have to ship the car to the southern bank of the Amazon. From this point on, there's just one problem. We're traveling on an abandoned road. We won't find any gas stations or other vehicles. We don't know whether the road will be passable. But that's what makes this adventure worthwhile.
Se ha picado una garrafa de gasoil y hay que sacarla y repostar antes de perder el gasoil.
We drive non-stop. That way we won't have to sleep out and risk getting malaria. We move at an average of 15 miles an hour, by day and by night. The mud keeps slowing down our progress, and it takes us several hours to go around puddles and across wooden bridges. On the second day of our journey, we find the only inhabited community on the road. It's just a little nameless hamlet where children play some 250 miles from civilization. But it seems even this place has known better, more prosperous days. The BR-319 was built in 1973 in order to connect Manaus and Portobello by land. But the jungle began to eat away at the highway, and the Madeira River soon became a much more realistic means of transport. We've loaded the car up with huge containers of fuel. It's the only way to make it to the other side. Although apparently some of us are entirely lacking in skill.
No. Te tapa el agujero. Pero no, sácalo más. Pues absorbe. Pero sopla más, coño, que te...
We've earned the right to relax in a quiet corner of the jungle. We've been travelling for hours without access to showers. Our backs aching from all the stress built up on the bumpy road. It's the first time we've travelled on such an abandoned and isolated road. But 550 miles after leaving Manaus, we finally reached the city of Portobello. We'll stop just long enough to sleep for a while and stretch our legs. Just like Manaus, Portobello is another city man has built on land stolen from the jungle. However, in Rondonia, there are places where man and jungle have learned to coexist without invading one another. The next 530 miles will be a piece of cake compared to the BR-319. Beyond the city of Cacoal, east of Rondonia, we enter the indigenous territory of the Serie, a tribe that is surviving the Amazon's deforestation. In the villages of 7 de Setembro, we find a society that, until 40 years ago, had had no contact with the white man. Almir has become the Surui's chief, and today he is our host. Thanks to him, we have the chance to visit a peaceful village where women make necklaces and men make arrows used for hunting.
¿Qué es?
Dientes de macaco.
O sea, con el coco hacéis varios tipos de collar. Y con los dientes de macaco también.
Sí.
Este es muy bonito, este. Y este con semilla. Simiente.
They take their time, whether they're piercing monkey teeth or weaving on their looms. Agamenon is Almir's right-hand man. He's in charge of preparing the arrows and taking care of every detail, like his grandfathers and ancestors before him did. But the Surui's ancestors could never have imagined that, alongside the palms and ceiba trees, their village would one day grow satellite dishes. Today, progress is a daily part of their lives.
Tú has utilizado la tecnología, tienes internet y conduces un 4x4. ¿Eso es incompatible con vivir como un indígena?
Nenhuma pessoa vai deixar o que é se você tem se você está usando instrumentos que são necessários, né? Eu acho que é necessário, é bom ter, né? Então eu não vou deixar de ser índio.
Almir, cuéntame esa iniciativa tuya que te ha llevado a Estados Unidos para defender el territorio suruí.
Com essas ideias de que como tecnologia pode ajudar, comunicar ao mundo, nós estamos protegendo nossa floresta. Então, a partir daí, eu tive essa iniciativa de dialogar com o Google, né? Ver com eles como que eles podem ajudar. Divulgar os nossos projetos, nossa luta e oferecer para nós y más satélite.
¿Consideras entonces que Google Earth es una buena herramienta para dar a conocer el drama que está viviendo la tierra de los suruí?
Sim, sim, porque eles divulgam, eles têm imagem que pode mostrar, né? Pode ter uma imagem que pode mostrar ao vivo, né? E oferecer essas imagens para o mundo, né? Então, a partir dessas, o mundo pode querer ajudar, proteger uma floresta. E em cima de tudo, uma vida humana que mora dentro da floresta, que são povos indígenas.
Thanks to Almir's tenacity, Google Earth has become an ally in denouncing the illegal logging taking place in the Serie de Setembro and the surrounding region. But in order to get a first-hand glimpse of the problem, you have to go into the jungle. The Suruí have invited José Luis to take part in a hunting dance. I wouldn't exactly call it a sophisticated ritual, but after practicing a few of the dance steps, we are just about ready. Or so we think. Agamemnon will be the group's guide. The rule of gold, if you intend to go hunting in the jungle, is to be very quiet. But there are too many of us here.
Eu já matei uma vez de porcão com esse arco.
¿Con esta flecha has matado un jabalí? Sangre de porcón, de jabalí.
Following the wild boar's tracks is an impossible mission today, so we'll have to point at the tree canopy if we want to make monkey stew. Do we want to? The bow and arrow are part of the past, and it won't do to waste a perfectly good arrow. Rifles are surer shots. But even so, it seems today is not a great day for hunting. We'll have to settle for the fruit of the cocoa tree. Maybe some other time.
A ver, claro que sí.
Assim que a gente come.
We haven't seen a single wild boar, but in a clearing in the jungle, we've just made a totally unexpected discovery. No one would bother to hide several tons of wood unless it was an illegal operation. On our way back, we find several illegal sawmills. We'll have to ignore them. Cameras are not welcome in these sorts of places. On the other hand, some communities need pastures for animals to graze. tree felling does not always involve a conflict over lumber. In any case, on the roads of Rondonia, we have seen how the jungle is quickly losing its ongoing battle with mankind. In order to understand the extent to which the Amazon has been deforested, we visit a lumber company, a legal one. There are many companies like this in Brazil. Lumber has become Rondonia's main industry, and thousands of families are dependent on these sawmills. What we want to find out is how these companies are regulated.
Só abate as árvores maduras, só abate a árvore que é madura já, que serve para industrialização. Árvore pequena você não corta.
Todos los árboles que se cortan se vuelven a reforestar.
Reforestar. Todos.
¿Seguro?
Seguro.
Todo el mundo habla de el problema que hay en el Amazonas con la tala de árboles y tú me aseguras que no, que se sigue repoblando.
No, reforestar.
Pero, entonces, ¿de quién es la culpa de que cada vez haya menos selva?
A culpa é de galera dos políticos, que todo mundo pagou reflorestamento e o IBAMA nunca plantou.
¿Por qué? Porque ese dinero va destinado a otras cosas.
Entonces, las serrerías están obligadas a pagar una tasa, un impuesto para el reflorestamiento.
Exatamente.
Y ese dinero desaparece.
It's interesting how neither politicians nor the lumber companies can stop illegal logging in the Amazon. And yet, a single man, a Surui Indian, has managed to mobilize a company like Google and denounce the deforestation of his jungle before the world. And his work in the territory of Sete de Setembro continues.
¿Y cuántos árboles hay replantados?
Aqui nesse área, aproximadamente uns quase 9.000. Nosso plano até agora é plantar mais de 1 milhão de mudas.
Así que este es el destino de los suruís.
Com certeza.
Before we go, the Surui have asked us that we each plant a tree in their village.
Ahí lo tenemos.
That way, they'll have a souvenir to remember us by.
Una planta de cacao.
I can't imagine a greater honor than this here in the Amazon.
Con mucho cuidado.
Over the past few weeks, we've had the privilege of flying over the landscapes of Canaima, getting a close look at its waterfalls, navigating the great river and exploring the jungle. Seldom will we see quite as much wildlife in such a short time. And seldom will we meet a people so committed to a cause. Throughout the journey, we have witnessed how progress drives some indigenous peoples from their land. But the Surui have proven that technology can also be used to promote culture, and that it can even help save this labyrinth teeming with life, the lungs of the world, also known as the Amazon.
Nós mesmos trabalhar, planejar o destino do nosso povo. A partir desse planejamento, a gente só podemos discutir, dialogar, propor para o governo e para outros setores ter esse diálogo de respeito, de pessoas mesmo, de que tem clareza como quer esse seu destino.